That should not be a
The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Charter, connecting Virginians to their government. We're pleased to have Delegate Chris Jones with us today and Delegate Lionel Spruill. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Delegate Spruill, tell us how your district is faring these days in terms of the economy.
Overall, I say it's fine, but you got to look at how they were lagging in the past. For example, let's start with education, when this superintendent of the school was saying how they were lacking in funds as far as raising and putting things in classrooms. And now that this year is a good budget year, and it looks favorable now to them as far as on that particular thing. Other than education is fine. But now we're coming to the transportation part of us, as far as that concerned, that people who are going back and forth to work are complaining because they high-rise traffic, and we have those stupid tolls that was put on by the Midtown downtown turnoff. That's having an effect on the economy because they say, I can't get to work, I can't ride for somebody, and what it's costing them. But as far as the city itself, it's solid. The member of City Council is doing a great job to make sure everything is being met for the city needs. So I think we're doing great overall.
Good. And Delegate Jones, I understand that the city of Suffolk, in terms of area, is the largest city in the Commonwealth.
It is 428 square miles.
And your district encompasses part of the city or all of it, or how does your district run?
Part of the city, I've got the northern part of the city, parts of downtown, and work around to the Deep Creek section of Chesapeake, and I have the western branch section, and Lionel kind of cuts my district in half. He comes from, I guess, old South Norfolk
That's right.
into downtown Suffolk proper.
That's right.
And talk to us a little bit about the economy in your district.
Of course, you know, we've got the riverfront area off 664. That continues to do well. We've got the Kroger up there. They're building, a lot of new commercial developments going on. We got a lot of, Lockheed Martin's up there, Northrop Grumman. So we're very balanced in that regard. But as Lionel said, we still have some undercurrents. You know, Shipyard just announced this past week 700 and some layoffs. Of course, they will start ramping back up next year. So I'd say it's doing well overall, but we still got to continue to try to reinvent our economy.
So we still have some major dependence on the federal government, at least in terms of the Department of Defense.
Oh yes, we do. I think more so. You got boots on the ground. We're building, ships at Newport News and ship repair in Hampton Roads itself. So we got a 2-year reprieve with sequestration, but it's going to be coming back, and we have to be prepared for that. And I think that the governor and the Assembly are trying to work together to try to reinvent our economy for the new Virginia economy, which is not easy to do. But that goes back to education and making sure our kids are prepared. And when we've got military, individuals retiring from the military, we can transition them into the workplace. And when a lot of them have credentials that they can't necessarily use in the workplace. So we've got a couple bills this session, I believe, Lionel, that actually speak to that. So if you're a corpsman and you're a medic in the military, it shouldn't take you the same amount of time if I were to go take it as a civilian. So we're trying to do those things that will kind of help speed along some individuals being hired that might have transitioned from the military.
And Delegate Spruill, we have a new initiative. Although there's been regional cooperation in the past, there's this initiative called Go Virginia to encourage regions to get together and work hand in hand to create new jobs. Do you think that's a good idea?
That's a good idea. We have been saying that for years, so that when things happen roads early, we seem to be a part of things. And we question in our caucus, in the Democratic caucus, we were saying, how come in Northern Virginia when there's a regional concept, some come up, that the Republicans and Democrats get together, it's Northern Virginia, forget about party. And the idea is good because then that can force us, I hope, to make sure all Hampton roads get together as a regional, get things done, and put party aside. If we do that, we could be great at Hampton roads. We can get that done.
And Delegate Jones, can you give us a little bit more detail about this regional cooperation? I understand that there's going to be a board of about 21 people.
Right.
There will be councils under that, as I
That's
understand.
correct. Of course, having been mayor, gosh, it's been like a generation ago now. I look in the mirror and I can tell it's been a generation ago. My daughter was like 1 year old now. She's almost 25, so that's been a while ago. We've always been a challenge in Hampton Roads of getting the localities to work together on economic development activities. So what this is more of a bottom-up strategy where you have your regional councils around the Commonwealth, and they will vet certain ideas, and then there will be some statewide money that's set aside, and then you got some regional dollars. And so the statewide board is going to be 21 members, I believe, and I will be a member of that because of my position as chairman of the Appropriations Committee. And we will look at those projects that have been vetted at the local, regional level that will be brought up to this level to say, okay, should they get these grant monies? And typically what we're hoping to do is, like, if someone brings in a couple hundred jobs and they locate, let's say, on the Chesapeake line, but Suffolk and Chesapeake work together, then what would happen if those new jobs, when they create X amount of collection of income tax, then in a grant over 6 years, what would occur, those monies would go back to Suffolk and Chesapeake to share. So you incent the two to work together to try to bring that employer in town, because as Lionel knows, people are not sure sometimes if they're in Suffolk, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, or Churchland when they're up in the northern part of the city when they're going in between up on Route 17. So I think that just in itself will cause them to think about working together. It requires a commitment from them. And we should be encouraging that, because if you look at Nashville, you look at Charlotte, you look at Savannah, they have a different structure of government, so they tend to work together more than we do. We tend to be more balkanized in the way that we deliver services and want to work together. So this is a way to encourage.
So, Delegate, go ahead.
That's the key right there, the word working together. And it doesn't make any sense is that of Hampton Roads, if we really work together and get things done, that's the key right there. And we say we can't do it because while I'm in Chesapeake and you are in Norfolk, we want to just build something for what's good for the community. We got to be in Chesapeake. Why not Suffolk?
Right.
You see, excuse me, but there was the main problem is people saying that we can get that commission to force us, I don't want to use the word force, but to work together. You'd be surprised the things that we can get done in Hampton Road. Major thing of transportation. Item 1, 2, 3, 4. I want this to come to Chesapeake Road. Somebody said, well, I got to do the high route, I got to do this stuff on. Hampton have the same problem. So now we are betting on the project at the same time while we're doing that. North Virginia is going on because they work together. The key word, as he said, is work together. If we get that done, we can be successful.
So I take it in the past there was a little bit too much competition amongst the local jurisdictions and people would poach projects from each other. Is that what was going on?
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was mayor, we tried to get, and Lionel will remember this, I keep the Pepsi can in my office to remind me of how well we don't work together in the past. It was going to be the Hampton Roads Rhinos. And it was 5 cities got together, but 2 cities were determined the location of the quote-unquote facility was going to be in their city. We couldn't even get beyond that discussion to try to determine if in fact we wanted to bring an NHL team to Hampton Roads. So that prevented us from even getting to what I call the substantive issue of is it makes sense for the region. So this hopefully will kind of help. So if you work together and you can create all these jobs and you would be able to gain the income tax that would normally come to the state, because we believe firmly that most of the growth is going to occur locally, not from going overseas and trying to bring a big company over here, but what we call organic growth within a region. And you do that by working together.
I was on city council at the same time.
That's right, you were.
We met in Norfolk, and we were saying, without calling the city, and I was saying, why here? I say, nowhere to park, in this particular area, nowhere to park. They said, traffic is bad. And I said, why not in Bowles Hill? Being selfish. Why not in Bowles Hill out in Chesapeake? I said, we got plenty of land in Bowles Hill that would take in Portsmouth, everybody. So that was a big fight, but it had to be one place because this city is more known than everywhere else. That was the major problem. Why not here? We didn't get it done because we
Right.
couldn't work it out.
That's right.
So what about this new Virginia economy? I mean, we need to wean our way off the federal government's largesse, be it the Department of Defense, be it federal government agencies or what have you. How are we going to do that?
Well, I don't know, but look, the point being, we're looking at it from from the point of view as far as what the federal government has doing and what they're trying to do. And we were saying if they weaned off certain things, then the projects that caused African Americans to be gaining the past because of the federal government, that we start going down this road, what does that mean as far as getting projects done statewide? When some are saying that we want to revert back to let the states have their own power away from the federal government. That's what scares some of us.
As chairman of the Appropriations Committee, I wanted to go back for a minute to a bill you're sponsoring that relates to the layoffs you talked about earlier in terms of the shipbuilding industry. Talk to us about your bill and what it would do to help alleviate that situation.
Well, you know, the shipyard has been in a partnership for the last handful of years plus with Groton, electric boat building the Virginia class of sub. I think they do 2 a year and they build different components of it. They're going to be they have reauthorized the Ohio replacement program. The Ohio class sub is a much larger sub, and so the shipyard will be looking to do more of that work than they have with the Virginia class. But the Navy wants to do and be able to build in a more efficient, timely manner, which saves money. So they want most of their operations of building under roof. And so it require the shipyard to invest about $750 million, $750 million, and create a certain number of jobs, 1,000 new jobs, to be able to qualify for $46 million in grants. Now they have to meet those performance measures before they would actually receive those dollars. Now this is not until 2021, 2022, but we have to be in the queue to make sure that we can respond as a Commonwealth, working with the shipyard, who is the largest employer, single location employer in the Commonwealth, and it's critically important because those jobs pay much higher than the prevailing wage in the community.
Now, I know you have a bill. It relates to expungement of criminal records. Is that it?
I put that bill in last year. I was the speaker at Towers Community College in Norfolk, and the students put it in, and the request was, why, if I go to court and it was dismissed or no one don't show up, and they said, so why do I have to pay to get the sponge? Why they can't do it right then? So I bought it last year, and we were talking about $1,600, and I forgot the amount of money it was, but the key was this. Last year was a tight year for us, and I went to appropriation, and it was turned down. So what happened later on Channel 10 News was a woman taken out here by Muhammad, some radical guy in Norfolk, and it was dismissed. Now she's up for promotion. She want to know why can't it be. So what happened? So I went back the same bill. I went back to courts. I said, hey, it's the same bill last year. Tell me how to fix this thing so when they go upstairs they can fix it. What happened? They were saying this: you pay the fine, so don't get it right there. You pay the fine. Then if the court says that you go back and say that you were right and they just expunge it, then you get your money back. Then I go upstairs. I was happy as I could be. I went into a little stamina block. Then I said, oh, I need an A+. So I went to my A+. And my A+ said, your bill gonna be fine. So what it's do now is say, hey, so if you went to court, if someone came to court and don't show up or dismissed, and you were not found guilty, then you go and pay the fine. And you get your money back. Then you get on apply to the judge, then you get your money back. But not right then. Right. And so I want to thank Delegate Jones. And I have to say, for the first time, if he's the Republican run for governor, I seriously got support. I'm going to be careful saying that, but he's my friend.
All right, you got your first endorsement.
My wife would say no. Just so you know, my wife would say no.
Just to follow up on that, I take it that at some point there was a thought that his piece of legislation would have an economic impact and would require a budget amendment?
That's correct. And what he did last year, and the process worked because we didn't pass it last year because we have a process that you put a bill in, It goes to the respective committee, and if it's got a fiscal impact, which is
That's right.
Department of Planning and Budget will determine, then it has to come upstairs, because if it's not funded, we're not like the federal government. We have to earn it before we can spend it. We have to reconcile all the pluses and minuses. And so he came back this year. He worked with the courts committee, and they said, okay, well, you pay it, and then if you're found, if it's a sponge, then in fact you get your money back. So it's a zero-sum transaction in that regard, and it's a fairness issue. And so, and sometimes we will absorb those costs or find the money for bills that do come up to the ninth floor, as we call it.
Now, another issue that your committee, Appropriations, is wrestling with, among others, is a request by the Port of Virginia for about $350 million.
Correct.
Talk to us about why that's a crucial element regarding the economy of the Commonwealth.
Well, of course, the port is probably has the impact on the largest number of jobs statewide. You got the inland port in Front Royal. You got the Port of Richmond. If you're down our way, you just see you got NIT, you got PMT, and you got Virginia International Gateway, which is the old Marist facility in Portsmouth. The economic impact is huge. Our competitors, Savannah, Charleston, New York, Baltimore, the first three in particular, they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars modernizing their port. Charleston just got approval to go to 52 feet from 48 feet or 47 feet. We're going to eventually go to 55 feet. So what we're going to do with this $350 million that's in the carrying a bond bill that's got that in it, we're going to put those improvements on the Norfolk International Terminal. We're going to densify it. We're going to modernize it, much like we have in the Portsmouth facility, to where you've got your stacks, and they'll be able to move more by mechanical means and have less labor that's required. We're getting the new gates put in, and this will allow us to have a higher throughput. Currently, we lead all the ports on the East Coast on the percentage of freight that TEUs that go out on freight, about 42%. So we think the port will grow tremendously over the next handful of years, in the next 10 to 12 years, because we're positioned to get those larger ships once Panama Canal opens up. So it's critically important that we invest that money now to modernize its technology and its gantries and its your ability to just move around on a smaller footprint.
Go ahead.
On that same point, put in the House Bill 371, and Delegate Villanueva, did I pronounce her name?
Villanueva.
Virginia Beach, he put a bill in there. So what happened? So we had to be co-sponsor and chief sponsor. On the same point that he was talking about, that we were able to allow them to move containers around, because when they were running out, with this bill that we both put in, it's saying that allow them to move containers off the site at the direction of VDOT, a route that they can use, that they can move containers in and out the site for themselves to stop running these big things to do it. They can do it themselves with the support of the citizen and VDOT, of course, to get them a route that they can move containers in and out of stuff that they do themselves release.
So that's critically important to maintaining our competitive advantage,
that's
is it
right.
not?
That's right.
What are we talking about in terms of jobs in your district that port generates?
Well, Hampton Roads, I can't really answer that question because I know the port is very important to Hampton Roads overall.
Oh, it's thousands and thousands of jobs.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about the whole Hampton Roads,
Right.
but as far as my district don't know.
Right.
From the longshoremen to, just everything. And I think that what we forget about is the port, people look at it as making money. Well, the port's primary purpose is not necessarily to make money, not to lose money, but it's to be the economic engine for the Commonwealth. And so, we want to have the offshoots. We want to have the distribution centers. We want to have the manufacturing plants locate close to the port so they can get their products and goods and services. We're doing a big business now on the agricultural export side. McAuliffe and our Secretary of Agriculture have been very active internationally. And so we are now exporting. And I believe, and I could get this wrong, and someone will correct me, I'm sure, but I think we export more than we import out of our port, which is pretty, good for us. You want to export more than you import.
So our balance of trade is better than the country as a whole.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
And by doing that, you get the longshoremen, the jobs are safe. You got the short-shoremen, another thing they call. I'm saying about those jobs are there because you got to have the necessary manpower to get those things done. So they're thriving.
The trucking association, maritime, the pilots, with the tugs and bringing the ships in and out of port and all the above. So it is a huge economic engine for Hampton Roads in particular, but especially for the Commonwealth.
And also the railroads that take it as well.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You talked a little bit about transportation in our introduction, and I know there's still problems in terms of the tunnels and the bridges in your district and in the immediate area. What is needed there?
Don't know, but the question was, let's use the Midtown and Downtown tunnel concern. The concern was Delegate Mr. Alexander, who has the funeral home, and he was saying that, and they helped me up along, that they made provision. You would have a funeral, he has a funeral home in Portsmouth, there's one in Norfolk. So if someone has to pass, they would have 40 cars to go through there. He said, do you pay each one of them? Then the second thing was we're concerned about the students who go to college, so forth. We really try to fix that where they can pay part of that. So the people are concerned that is losing jobs mainly in Portsmouth, mainly, and then some parts of Norfolk as far as paying the tolls. And the question was, when would it end? The contract says, I think, up to 58 years, that they can gradually raise it. So I don't know what the word gradually means, but you can do it for 58 years. So it haven't really slowed anything down. I grabbed that, they have slowed it down some. So they seem to think that that's a back. But what's problem is that those who don't want to pay the toll, so what they're doing, they're bypassing the toll and they're coming through Chesapeake and using the high-rise bridge or Motel Highway. Motel Highway in Chesapeake is not equipped, it's not well maintained where it should, but they're using that to get around from paying the tolls. Or the high-rise bridge, which we're going to have a second high-rise bridge, I think we're working on it. So the high-rise bridge just congested back up like it's New York City because of that toll situation. So I think now help me out some as far as we were able to buy down the toll, so they brought it down some to help out a whole lot. So that's a big help. But the citizens got to understand that we really have to get something done, and we need the money for it, so where the money coming from. But I guess they were concerned about the way it was done and how it was done.
And Chairman Jones, I know you were instrumental in that, helping to subsidize some of those tolls.
Well, I've got a couple bills this session because I was opposed to the subsidization only because it was a terrible deal that was done in the beginning.
Right.
So last year, of course, we had the funding bill 3 sessions ago, 2313. We had House Bill 2 years ago, and we had 1886, which was a privatization bill last year that I carried. And then this year I'm carrying 1069. So 1069 is going to set up a statewide tolling policy that will prevent what occurred at Midtown Downtown. It's going to basically say you cannot toll existing lanes without adding new capacity, except in certain circumstances. And that will then allow, like on the high-rise bridge, for example, we add another bridge. If you had 2 or 4 lanes, you can toll the 2 or new 4 lanes, but you can't toll the existing 4 lanes. So someone could then go into, like they've been going all along, from Suffolk, Bowers Hill, into Great Bridge, into Greenbrier, without paying a toll. But if they want to jump on and get there 20 minutes faster, they can pay a toll, but you have an option, which I think is very, very important. Unfortunately, the Midtown Downtown Tunnel deal, everything with that was done, in my opinion, wrong. They told before capacity was created. They have an escalator of 3.5% every year. We were not aware of the details of the transaction after it was done. So 1886 from last year says you got to do all the above. And a good example is I-66 in Northern Virginia.
Inside the Beltway, because that's the big issue there.
That's exactly right, yes, sir.
And I guess there will be an issue about 395 from Springfield into the district, because that's supposed to become an HOT.
A hot lane, yes, sir.
Right,
That's
exactly.
correct.
Exactly.
So you can use it if it's HO2 or HO3,
right.
But if you want to jump on as a single or 2, if it's HOV3, then you pay a toll to get to where you want to go.
Right, and you have to have a transponder.
Right, exactly. Right. And then, of course, in the Bill 1069 that I'm carrying this year, which is actually up in 15 minutes from the full committee, so I got to leave right after this. To Lionel's point about people not paying the tolls, and some people that had a lot with billing, as you know, you've got a lot of calls in your office just like we have. So this bill that the administration's request has a tolling how they can collect the fees and fines. So now if you have a Virginia Easy Pass and you go through and something's wrong with it, it doesn't take your picture or click it, they will have to, you'll provide VDOT with your text number or your phone number, or cell, or your email, and it'll tell you within 4 days, hey Woody, you went through, you don't have enough money, recharge your account, or we'll rerun it for you. So you have like a 10-day grace period. So we're going to try to take care of about 70 to 80%, which is what they did on the South Norfolk Bridge, which has really cut that down by probably 85%.
Great. Now we touched a little bit on education, K through 12, and of course the governor has some money in the budget to increase funding. You think that's going to be a big help? And will it be a big help in the second year of the budget that he's proposed that teachers get raises? All state employees are included in that, but in more specifically, will that be a big help for your teachers?
I think so, but I just wish I wish we could do it a year now, because it's been, what, 4 years? 4 or 5 years? At
Yeah,
least.
but they've had 2 raises in the last probably 5 years.
See, but now, I don't know, it used when I was on city council, that let's say, for example, if they got a 2% raise from the state, then we would kind of match it. There used to be, because I was on city council when he was a little way back there, when he was on council, it's different. But like I said, but I think it's helped. But the main thing they got to understand is this. People don't really understand that Virginia, we must have a balanced budget. And you may want to raise, but you got to make sure that money is there. So the money's not there, and if he give me a raise, I want to raise, and he calls us to go in the hole, I can't vote for him for governor. So Trevor's the appropriation, they got to make sure, yes, we can do these things, but the money has to be there. That's why people don't understand. They want
Yep.
where the money gonna come from. Tax, don't give me no tax.
Right.
Where the money gonna come from? He says. So we can look at the stock market. We look at how we doing it. They come in for last quarter, what have you. You got to look at all of those things. So I think it's a step in the right direction for them to do so.
But of course, there is still that local match requirement, isn't
Yeah, well,
there?
the governor did. He put in above the benchmarking number a substantial amount of new money for K-12. So I commend him for that. What we've done in the second year, you've got 4 items that actually require a match from your local governments. The 100% VRS rate for the retirement system, that's going to require a match. The 2% raise for teachers. The 2,500 new positions across the Commonwealth will require a match. And then the at-risk funding. About $138 million those last 2. So what we're going to do is take those 2 items, rearrange how that money goes back, and give more flexibility to your local, to your school divisions, which then doesn't require the match to the level that Lionel was talking about. And in Chesapeake's example, they come out way ahead because they can decide, because in the last 5 or 6 years, we've had to cut a fair amount of money from education and all the other aspects because of the downturn in the economy. Many divisions did it differently than others. So the flexibility is something we've heard a lot about. We're going to take the lottery monies and replace with general funds and really get back to the ADM, which is average daily membership. But if we don't have it, we can't spend it. And we'd like to do it in the first year, but we just don't have the resources in year 1 to do it.
We've got 30 seconds left. I wanted you to have an opportunity to comment on the importance of the veterans in the Commonwealth and in your district.
It is very important. I was truly surprised that the veterans who put their lives on the line for us and to come back home, some of them not getting the benefits that they deserve. They have a job, we're not taking care of them. I was really surprised. So we are now trying to look at things, how we can do really to help our veterans. It's very important. We must do them. We must reward those who go out and put their lives on the line for all of us. And we have not done a good job yet, but we are working on it.
Great. Hey, thank you for both being here, Delegate Lionel Spruill and Chairman Chris Jones. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Charter Communications. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.